Thanks again. So you probably don't know who I am. So the first slide I want to go over is, who is this face in front of me? And I know it's not a pleasant face, but let's go over it. My name is Alfaro, and I've been coding since I was about 12. I've done over 160 websites. I'm well versed on front-end and back-end development. I've had experience on infrastructure, architecture, authentication, optimization, refactoring, migrations, user interface design, SEO, and agile development. Now, about PGA.com, just some quick little stats for you. We have over 100 million views per month, maybe more on tournament months. And we share that traffic with Yahoo Golf. We have a partnership with them. We have over 30,000 PGA professionals, which you could search on through geolocation. We have 20,000 courses, which you could also geolocate. 20,000 equipment clubs, and thousands of articles that are updated every day. So that's pretty good news. We're doing pretty good with data, but I have some bad news for you. Your website, your Drupal website, could die right now. And the way it could die is without proper cache, optimization, and development strategies. So let's go over that. Let's help you out. Make sure you don't have a broken website in the middle of the night. But first, why? I think it'll differentiate yourself as a developer from any other developer because you'll have experience in the enterprise level. You'll be a reliable source, and you can pursue your dream of looking like this fine gentleman by making more money for you or your business. So the first step, cache. If you run a query log on Drupal, just no cache, you'll notice that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of queries being run. So when you have thousands of queries multiplied by millions of visitors, it's not sustainable in the enterprise. So I'm going to go over a little bit of a cache primer for those of you who don't know what it is. You have two main areas of cache. You have your browser cache, which could be on your desktop, your mobile, or your tablet device. Or you have your server-side cache, which is on your server. What are the main aspects of what a browser cache holds? You have HTML pages. You have assets, such as images, like the PGA.com logo. You have JavaScript, CSS. Now, your browser, the first time you visit a website such as PGA.com, will hold data like this. And the next time you visit, it'll be much quicker. So that's the benefit of cache. And of course, the last thing is cookies! Cookies! But not cookies like the Cookie Monster enjoys. Cookies are something that you could say you want to save an item on a cart. And you want to come back 30 minutes later and it still be there. You would save a cookie for a predefined amount of time for that. On the server side, you have a multitude of different options for cache. Through the default API of Drupal, if you use hooks, most of cache will already be handled for you. If you do it outside of hooks, which I don't recommend, you could use the cache API. And you could also use memcache, which is super fast for some use cases, in some cases even faster than MySQL. And that could return database calls, API calls, or page render calls. Now, the last one is a little bit complicated. So I'm going to explain it using an analogy. Say your friends are a bunch of servers. And this is in the reverse proxy field. Your friends are a bunch of servers, and you have a bodyguard for your friends. Now, let's say 50 people want to visit your website. They go to your homepage. They want that homepage. Your bodyguard just looks back at one of your friends once and has the answer for all 50 people simultaneously because it's so fast, in the case of Nginx or Varnish. And your friends are no longer bothered until the cache expires, and it's just that much more efficient. No more queries are being run. So what is the problem of user cache for super high enterprise level websites? And how could you solve it? Well, if you use the core Drupal user module and you have a lot of users, your site is going to go down. When, for example, you're using the core Drupal user module I'm mentioning, you would not have cache when you log in. Hey, buddy. Come on in. So your cache goes out the window when you log in. Now, how could you resolve that? Well, on the back end, you could use cache fragmenting. You could use MySQL using HA proxy to distribute the load across your database servers when you're fragmenting that cache. On the front end, and this solution is something I more allude to, is load the entire page with cache, even if you're logged in. And then afterwards, when the page loads, use JavaScript to load the dynamic data, such as using Mongo as a database, because I feel that's quicker, and it's more JavaScript oriented. So what's Mongo, the database? So if you've seen Blazing Saddles, Mongo was, you could describe him as stupid, fast, and powerful. And Mongo is really described like that. It's flexible in its data model. You don't have to have a schema. You work off key value pairs, so the development routine is pretty straightforward. And in a test I ran of 50,000 users being added, it ran about 15 seconds faster than MySQL. Now, you also have a variety of community modules that work with Mongo, so you don't have to do as much development. Asset optimization. Now, I know you're wondering, what the hell? Ivan, why are you dressed like Mr. T in a 5K? I thought it would be appropriate because, all right, I gotta take off my blazer for this. I was optimizing my assets running this 5K. Oh, jeez. So what are some routines you could go through to improve your assets on your website? Well, you could use the typical Firebug, which is on your Firefox browser. You could use Chrome's default developer tools. You could just look at the network tab or all your errors in your page using that tool. But what else? You have YSlow, which is a product by Yahoo. And it gives you a bunch of use cases that are very deep and detailed on how to improve your website. Excuse me. One such sample I ran on PGA.com is putting CSS at the top, putting JavaScript at the bottom of your page, having CDN assets, assets loaded off the CDN. It'll give you very detailed information. Here's another sample of some statistics. So if you think about our previous conversation about the browser, you'll notice that here the biggest percentage of the load is on the image, but on the secondary load, there's no image load because the browser is saving that as cache. Now, about images, I could talk to you about several different automated systems on the server that when your editor is writing an article and he uploads an image, it could automatically reduce the quality, compress it. But I think that is not something creative would like, so I'm going to recommend that you just work on the theme images and use professional software that doesn't degrade the quality. So professional software such as Fireworks, which I have on the left, and it gives you the option to decrease the percentage of the quality by percentage, or Photoshop on the right. And just having the theme images compressed in quality using those tools should save you a lot of load. Content delivery network. So we briefly talked about this before, about the CDN. So let's say you are in Savannah, Georgia, and your website that you are visiting is in China. The main server is in China. You don't want to have your network travel all the way to China to get an image. The CDN bridges that gap. The CDN would, if it's big enough, have a server in Atlanta or Savannah itself and load that asset right from there. So it's much quicker. And in Turner, we strive to have everything except the HTML loaded off CDN. So the next little slide is when I look at other websites that are supposed to take heavy traffic, it really bothers me when people don't have aggregation on the performance page. And it makes me want to take a machine gun to their face. And because it's the easiest way to improve the performance of your website. It basically takes, say you have 30 modules installed on your Drupal instance. You probably have 30 JavaScript or CSS files being loaded. It takes all those and compresses them down to 3 or 4 files. So it's massively powerful. The next thing I would recommend is enabling cache on everything outside of core, such as views or feeds, because that could improve your performance also. Another big factor is running cron regularly, because if you don't, your cache tables are going to become huge, your website's going to degrade in performance, and it's not going to go through maintenance tasks it needs to. So what are the best practices for development? I think the best developer has a lot of foresight into the business that he is working for. So I put Dr. X as the best developer in the world. So what modules should you not use in the enterprise level? I listed out the main ones that we all are okay to use: PathAuto, CK Editor, Memcache, Varnish, CDN, like we talked about before. Admin menu. Admin menu. Token, features, strongarm, libraries, drush, devel, but don't use that last one on production. What's not okay to use? If you could, don't use the core blocks module. The blocks module on cron runs, when it has hundreds of blocks, it doesn't do well. So don't use that if you can. Try to use maybe context or even build your own templated system. The users module, as we talked about before, because the core Drupal users module is not performant. The community views, panels, or node words module. Now the first two, I know maybe some of us have, and we'll have to maybe kind of work with them, kind of refactor them. But in an ideal situation, you wouldn't use those tools when you're building from scratch for a high-performance site. The node words module, it's very inefficient. In some ways, it looks for strings in content. So it has a lot of load issues. So I don't recommend it.
Now, if this is not a large site, you're saying views, which is fine.
Yeah.
You don't want to misdirect some people in smaller sites.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Exactly.
Question.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Monopoly? Relative to panels, I'm just wondering if Monopoly is an improvement or even worst case scenario.
Never used it. So, yeah. But in general, I don't recommend using community modules for high-scale sites. And this is because, well, number one, they're generally not tested for high traffic. Number two, the short-term goal you're trying to accomplish by using a community module is not going to match the long-term goal of the business. Say you have a view that has a lot of queries, it's running like, or a lot of inner joins to get a lot of database tables together. As you grow in traffic and things get more dynamic, that's not going to be sustainable. And you're going to get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning saying that the site is down because X page, which has a view, is breaking.
What do you use instead when you do?
Code from scratch.
That would be going against what CMS is all about, right? Doing from the scratch, why do you want to go for CMS?
Well, you have to compromise, right? You got a free system already. You have to support the scale.
Why would I go with Drupal if I'm going to build it from scratch? What's the advantage I get?
Could you speak up a little, please? Because I can't hear your question, but I can hear your question.
He said he wants to go from the scratch for a few modules. Don't go with community modules.
Right.
So, but it beats down the Drupal community and CMS part, right? Building it from scratch.
Right.
We can go with Java, right? Java or other programming.
Could you repeat the question for the mod?
Sure, he's asking why should we code from scratch if we have modules readily available? And the reason is if you have a high traffic site and you don't want to have these factors that could go against you, you wouldn't want to do that.
I got an example here in my little 5-minute talk. We poked a hole through Drupal. We have a client server Windows application running at a international company up here in North Georgia, and they do inspections all over the globe for for insurance companies and for the government. It's over boilers and things like that. And so they are entering all this data all day long, and they're putting their PDFs out there. Well, to look at a foreign database, we're binary replicating the data up and mirroring the reports up behind the Drupal website. To be able to get there through Drupal is almost impossible. So, and I looked for, there used to be one called data, and there used to be one called something, and it never worked. But all we did was poke a hole, stepped into another database, made sure it was in our setups, and then we went and read that, created a view to read it in. It'd be real easy to go behind your Drupal site and create a view, and then create the code, and then just list what you need to list. I mean, you're just pulling it from a view at that point, and you can even filter it and do all that stuff, and it is a lot faster than the views it runs. Because you're not got all the other overhead of views trying to do everything for you, you're just doing one thing. So there are reasons to step outside and do some hand coding. In a module, not just code.
It's really an evaluate and see to thing, right? So we started using views on NBA team sites and we had problems, right? So there's no one way to solve the problem either. It's just don't pick up someone else's module and say, yep, this is it. Evaluate it, find where the slowdowns are, and then, some people use SQL queries, they tweak the view, etc. Right, so this is more of don't just take a blinder and pick it up and use it, but really evaluate it.
Yeah, evaluating a module and then installing, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Looking into it, that's what I
Yeah.
So can we move forward and then come back to this at a later point, because I don't want to shortchange anybody.
Oh, I think we answered. Yeah. So, what things not to do on that topic? Don't run database calls inside your templates. Don't use process-heavy hooks inside hook cron, during peak traffic hours especially, because your website is already under enough stress as it is. Don't use external assets, because say you're using the jQuery library from code.jquery.com. If jQuery goes down, which it has before sometimes, your website is going to slow down or it's going to go down. Don't use select star, use specific columns. Don't use queries within subqueries and whatever going on and so forth. And it's just nasty. And on top of that, having for loops. I've seen that and it's just nasty. So what else do you not do? This is an example of JavaScript code. You could make it shorthand so you don't have to have brackets. And this sort of code angers me because you don't know where the code ends and where it potentially starts. So if you don't want to get elbowed in the face by me, don't do that sort of code. The benchmarking code tool that I recommend is New Relic. You could get it at newrelic.com. And it's pretty nice. We have found some bottlenecks using this tool, and so I recommend it. Here we have a screenshot. Yeah, New Relic. We have a screenshot of how the functions are operating. This is not from PGA.com because I wouldn't be able to show that. But you could see a breakdown of this. You could see how cache loads, how the PHP layer loads, the front end, so on and so forth. You could even do it by geolocation. It's pretty powerful. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, it is. So here are some tips on how to write your code and benchmark it. You could use devel and see how long queries take. You could just be bare bones about it and just run a little timer at the beginning of your code, another timer end at the end of it. You should check your PHP and console error logs to make sure they don't multiply and affect the performance of your website. And the last one, break stuff. Dr. Xavier, as in the beginning of this chapter, I mean, he's psychic. We're not psychic. We're not even perfect human beings. We need to accept that sometimes stuff will be broken. And when that happens, we need to be calm and objective. The best thing we could do is reduce the risk to affect the business. In conclusion, we've covered the importance of cache, optimization strategies, and development practices to not get you elbowed in the face by me. That's about it. Do you have any questions?
What CDN do you guys currently use?
Akamai?
What is that? Which one was that?
Akamai?
Oh.
Can you discuss the relative staff size focused on this site when you talk about writing things from scratch? I think that would help people get a sense.
Oh, we have 4 developers. Yeah.
For the site?
For this site at Turner Broadcasting, yeah. Yes.
When you're talking about the requirements to be a high traffic website, what are we talking about? Are we talking minimum of 1 million visits a month, or what's your metric?
Frequent question.
No, I think I heard them. What's the base? Oh, you need to hear it. What's the base for what a high traffic website is? That's your question, right? So what quantity? Since I've been working on PGACOM for 4 years, my metric is 100 million per month. So I could have a different meaning to somebody else.
100 million
Per month.
visitors?
Yeah, views.
Views, okay.
Right.
Is PGA.com using both MongoDB and MySQL or only MongoDB?
Can't say anything.
Yeah.
Not Knacker, you can tell it.
Yeah, it's kind of confidential information. I can't be too specific, or I'll get my wrist slapped.
Could you, with 4 developers, can you describe the deployment process, both the build server, pre-production, test demo, how you guys move through environments?
I could be vague about it, and potentially.
What if you were dealing with 4 developers working on a site, what would your recommendations be with deployment processes?
Okay. Did you all hear that question? Okay. He was asking what the best scenario is for development using 4 people in the team. And one team could have 3 servers that could have 3 weeks sprints of development time, one might say. And there would be time for QA right before deployment. And I would just recommend that.
What modules or techniques do you guys use to merge specifically the databases? Do you have, are there local databases? Like, what Drupal modules would you recommend to push that through?
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, oh. Yeah, Erica, Ed, look away. I would say hypothetically, you may not even have to use modules. Potentially. Okay.